Hello. Looks like we are live. Check it out. Do 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 do. I'm off pitch. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Are we gonna get an echo? There you go. All right. So this is the Monday morning live stream. And the goal of the Monday morning live stream is to reorient. There's a lot of echoes in this room. It's an empty room. I'm going to reorient. I have to orient myself. It's a weird word, orient. It's like, reminds me of oriental. Orient. A term for the East. Anything that belongs to the Eastern world. So maybe the Eastern world knows how to orient. If that's the case, well, what does the Western world know how to do? The free dictionary. To place so as to face the east. To become familiar with a situation. Familiar. I like that word, root word, family. All right. So, to wear the glasses or not to wear the glasses. I don't really need them, but it makes my vision crisp, almost perfect. But then it does something to my head. When I start seeing things perfectly, it can be disorienting. I've gone all weekend without my glasses, and so I've oriented. I've become familiar with a fuzzy worldview. And when I put these on, I'll be able to see crystal clear, and that it can be disorienting. It's a mind-altering experience. A mind-altering experience. Whoa, whoa, that's amazing. I once was lost, but now I see. I was lost, but now I see. There's some lyrics for you. So I have to make sure my hands aren't visible so you can't see my secret key clickings. Okay. So Monday morning, I already checked my Slack because I am not a slacker. Or am I a slacker? It's like, why do they call it Slack? If you use Slack, you are not a slacker? Or are you a slacker? Is slacking bad? There was a guy in college, he said that he would never try 100%. He never went for one, like a perfect score. He did the minimum necessary work to get the A so that he could graduate with his degree. And he said that's because he's smart and he's an engineer, and that's what engineers do. But there is something to be said about there's there's a question. You go on a quest. How hard should you work? I was reading the Amazing Grace. No, I was reading a link sent by um, someone from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints because I was looking for something wholesome to listen to yesterday, and I went to their app. It's called the Library on your phone, and I found some conversation about a playbook, and so just like anyone who does sports, you end up with a playbook, and the idea is that you can have a playbook for life. And so I asked this person, I'd like to call him a friend, um, well, is there an official playbook from the church? And he said, no, but we can create one for ourselves. But here's a link to something that was referred to in the conversation I was listening to. And it talked about, it was guidance. One of them was, honesty and integrity. And so you're supposed to work for the time that you should be working for what your employer pays you to work for. Like, but the question is like, is it 100%? Because if you do 100%, it's like, it's not sustainable. But like, you can go, like, if you go running and you just run for 100%, you're going to kill yourself if you try to run for any distance. Um, so there's a question, there's a quest. How hard should you be working? And then there's also kind of a side quest, and maybe it's related, or maybe it's the primary quest is how smart should you be working? Because you wouldn't be questing and questioning if you weren't interested in this how smart should you be working question. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost without my glasses, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. All right. So it's a playbook. The playbook. Monday morning playbook. Start your Monday righteously, right? Oh man, I have a late meeting, a 5 p.m. meeting. Yeah, so if you start your day at 7 a.m., and actually 6:30 a.m. because I checked, tried to check in, make sure everything, that there was no alerts. Many of the alerts I already created in the last 4 months. Hmm. So I will probably need to pace myself so I can give more attention to this over here, to you, because I mean, I also have a family I need to give attention to as well. You need a good work-life balance. Hmm. I don't have much room in here to go exercise and go jogging and be with my family. Hmm. Should I be with my family right now? They are going to the library soon, and not the one on the app. They're going to a brick and mortar library. Okay, so there we go. I did pose a question. I got a response from people who are up. These are the wonderful people. There are some people who are just up and ready right now. They responded to me, and I appreciate this. So let's leave y'all with a song. I wonder if I can do Amazing Grace without getting like a copyright or something like that. It's hard for me to sing and read at the same time. The brain just doesn't work like that. Here, how about this? So one of my side tasks, my side quest, is the convective heat engine advertisement. Heat convective heat engine.github.io. So I built a website. Ta-da! There's a tower. It's 1,000 feet tall, 1,000 meters tall. It produces weather. It produces a rainstorm inside of it, and it's the infrastructure for a sustainable city. It's also got a below ground piece that's harvesting low temperature geothermal energy. It's a screeching owl, um, and it can transform a desert. Anyways, the team did not win the $1 million first round with this X Prize. So my goal is to review this video and identify like the specific area where Elon Musk is talking about the solution that is best. So I'm going to let this play for you.
The X Prize Foundation runs incredible large-scale competitions around the world that set very clear, measurable, objective goals.
Competitions and prizes can actually bring innovation to solve not just any problem, but really big, challenging problems.
We don't care who you are or where you come from. If you're able to accomplish this task, you win. You're leveraging the genius of folks from all over the world.
The tinkers, the entrepreneurs, the engineers.
We're looking for something that is audacious and achievable.
Problems that the markets have failed to solve.
I think we're about setting a high bar. We want to set a goal for people that's inspiring, but it's also hard.
So no matter what challenge you want to solve, join us on this journey. Just don't be satisfied doing nothing. Welcome everybody. Welcome to a special live stream on Earth Day.
Here we are on Earth.
On Earth in a beautiful nature
by
preserve.
nature.
Yeah. Couldn't do it better for 21 Earth Day.
Yeah.
Here to talk about the launch of the largest prize ever, $100 million X Prize for carbon capture, and here with a very special guest, probably one of the greatest innovators and engineer of our time, the CEO of Tesla, of SpaceX, of a bunch of other companies, and someone I'm proud to call a friend. Elon. Elon.
Hey, Peter.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's the perfect setting for our conversation today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a long time now.
Yeah, 21 years, I think. It was like 2000?
Yeah, whoa, it is. I think it was 2000 in like Brazil.
Brazil, it was
actually in a similarly nice sort of setting.
Yeah, it was Adeo's birthday.
Yeah, Florianopolis.
In Florianopolis.
Yeah, and you're trying to convince me not to start a rocket company.
I was trying to convince you to fund the original X Prize
Well,
before I met Anusha.
Yes, but you also you're like really advised me not to start a rocket company because I would lose all my money, which I thought you were probably right. So I thought a 10% chance of success, but anyway, seems to have worked out.
I'm sure glad you didn't follow my advice.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So we're going to talk a little bit about the rules, try and encourage teams around the world to register for this thing.
Yeah.
Get as many get as many innovators, students talking about it.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
then-
our goal is like basically to do something that is, to have it be sort of interesting, fun, and ultimately useful, and to spur creative ideas for what is actually the smartest way to take the trillions of tons of carbon that we've removed from the ground and will remove from the ground, from deep underground, and we've placed that carbon in the atmosphere and oceans, which obviously changes the chemical constituency of the surface of the Earth.
Yeah.
Now I should sort of measure my statements in that I think the Earth, like I don't think we're currently doomed, to be clear. This is very important. Very importantly, there are people in all parts of the spectrum, ranging from nothing to worry about, CO2 just makes things better, to we're doomed and there's nothing we can do about it. I am somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So my concern with the CO2 is not kind of where we are today, or even the current rate of carbon generation, but really if carbon generation keeps accelerating and we keep getting that increase in the Keeling curve, the CO2 parts per million in the atmosphere, and if we keep going and if we're complacent, then I think we could. There's some risk of sort of nonlinear climate change. So thus far we've seen the CO2 parts per million be fairly linear on our time scale, although it looks very exponential on geologic time scale. But there are certain potential nonlinear events, like if we raise the temperature to the point where we melt the Siberian traps or something like that,
and methane escapes. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just a massive amount of sort of frozen dead plant and animal matter in Siberia. There's potentially trapped gases deep in the ocean. If the ocean warms, that could be released. So these are just risks that are not wise to take. And since we know that long term we're going to have renewable energy anyway, because we'll run out of oil and gas. It's not going to last forever. So we know where this ends up. This has to end up with renewable, sustainable energy. It's tautological. It's really just a question of, do we try to get there sooner or later? And we should try to get there sooner. It's obvious. Why run the? How long do you want to run this experiment?
Yeah. It's also true that even if we stopped CO2 production, that's probably still not enough. That we do need mechanisms for extraction of CO2 from the atmosphere and the oceans that don't exist right now.
As I said, I am. People sometimes think I'm sort of like. I'm kind of in the middle of the spectrum. I think if we stopped CO2 production today, which obviously we could not do without civilization coming to a grinding halt, and mass starvation and all sorts of terrible things happening. So we could not stop CO2 generation today. But I think at the at the sort of 400, possibly even 500 ppm level, I think it's probably okay. But if as the world industrializes and we're sort of at 8 billion people, get to 9 billion people, have a lot more industrial output per person, you could see at what might be okay at sort of 400 or 500 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere might become quite dire at 1,000.
Yep.
And the trend is certainly in that direction if we don't do anything about it. So that's why I think it's just probably an unwise experiment to run. Even if you think that this is why I think it should be a compelling argument to even those who would assign a low probability to increased CO2 causing problems. Like let's say you think it's 99.9% likely that that adding all the CO2 to the ocean's atmosphere is going to be fine. So you're saying there's a 0.1% chance of disaster. Well, there's only one. So right now we only got one planet. Even a 0.1% chance of disaster, why run that risk? That's crazy. So So I think what's likely to play out is that we will continue to add a lot more CO2 to the ocean's atmosphere, and also, ocean acidification, as you know, is also an issue. You don't want to sort of add carbonic acid to the oceans and change the pH level, because it destroys reefs and all that. So
which it's actively doing right now as we're watching.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is a problem.
Now, I remember when I first met you, Elon, it was about 2000, and I remember you had two massively transformative missions. It was one making humanity interplanetary, and the second was bringing us to a sustainable economy, a sustainable energy economy.
Right, exactly.
And I think you've done pretty damn good. Are you happy with the progress you've made?
Yeah, I think it's hard to complain. The outcome so far has been great. Although obviously, we've not yet sent anyone to Mars, and hopefully we'll in the future. And in fact, just a few days ago, or late last week, I guess, NASA awarded SpaceX the contract.
Awesome, $2.9 billion for the next lunar lander.
Yeah, so a SpaceX craft will be the next craft to put humans on the moon. I believe the first human will be a woman actually this time.
Yes.
So this is great.
Yeah.
But of course we have to actually do it. And then tomorrow we've got our third astronaut launch to the space station.
Before we dive into the carbon removal rules and so forth.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously a bit of a dichotomy because our rockets do produce carbon,
True.
And people are like, oh, what a hypocrite.
Sure, no.
He's obviously just in for the money.
But let's talk about the Crew 2 mission.
I feel I should address this.
Right.
Are you being a hypocrite by launching rockets that produce carbon? Here's the problem is right now there's really no way to get around the physics of a rocket. So I think it's important for the long-term preservation and ultimately the expansion and extension of the scope and scale of consciousness and the long-term probability of survival of humanity and life as we know it. We must become a multi-planet species. Because there are all these risks that we can't control.
Existential risks.
There's all these
asteroid strikes.
Yeah. There's like
super volcanoes.
We could do, we could have a World War III or something. There's, I'm optimistic about the future, but you could also say like, okay, well, so how long do you think civilization will last before there's a catastrophic event? If you say infinity, this is not correct.
Yes.
Okay. This is not. History does not suggest that. History just suggests we do dumb things to civilizations all the time, and the ancient Egyptians, ancient Romans, where are they now? Let's do the video series. Where are they now?
Yes.
The Babylonians, Sumerians, you name it. So there's been many civilizations that have risen and fallen, and anyway, we've got to preserve. We've got to become multiplanetary, and right now the only way to do that is with rockets that do burn fuel. But we do have a long-term plan for sustainability of even rocket flights by generating propellant using sustainable energy, wind and solar, to generate, starting first with liquid oxygen. And for our Starship vehicle, it's almost 80% liquid oxygen and 20% liquid methane. The oxygen, it's obviously pretty easy to create that. You just use wind and solar electricity, and you do air separator because you've got the oxygen already in the air. The plants are making the oxygen, so you can just use electricity, basically renewable electricity, to create 80% of the propellant on the rocket. And then for the remaining 20%, you can use the Sabatier process, where you actually take CO2 out of the atmosphere, and you combine that with water to create CH4 and more O2.
Yep.
And that's in fact what we would do on Mars.
Sure.
To generate propellant.
Sure.
So there is a long-term plan for sustainable generation of propellant for the rockets. I do want to emphasize that. And if there's some other way to do that now, we certainly would.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to sort of address this apparent inconsistency in if generating carbon is bad, why are you doing that with rockets?
Yeah. And listen, I think it's a moral imperative for the human race to be able to move off Earth while we have the opportunity. Everything we know is right here.
And just because it's not just one of the other criticisms. I sometimes feel like, oh, is this some escape hatch for rich people? No, No, you know, they think it's like, so, yeah, going to Mars reads like that ad for Shackleton going to the Antarctic. You know, it's dangerous, it's uncomfortable, it's a long journey. You might not, you know, come back alive, but it's a glorious adventure, and it'll be amazing, an amazing experience.
And your name will go in history.
Yes, but you might die, and it's gonna be uncomfortable, and you probably won't have good food, and all these things, you know. so if an arduous and dangerous journey where you may not come back alive, but it's a glorious adventure, sounds appealing.
And
Mars
you
is the
still,
place.
and you
That's the
still
ad.
have
That's the ad for
thousands
Mars.
of volunteers, if not millions of volunteers, who would want to go.
I mean, honestly, a bunch of people probably will die in the beginning. It's tough sledding over there. You know?
We're an exploring species.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Not for everybody. We don't want to make anyone go, so it's like, it's volunteers only.
You have a Dragon capsule on the pad. Crew 2 is nominally, or you still go for launch tomorrow?
Yeah.
Awesome. You want to just spend 2 minutes talking about the Crew 2 mission?
Yeah. So we've got hopefully a great mission planned for tomorrow. This will be our third flight of people to the space station. We had the test mission with 2 astronauts, then the first sort of operational mission with 4. This is our second operational mission with 4. You know, it's an international crew, great group. I was just looking online. They're sort of, you know, picking their sort of, you know, hopefully not final meal, but you know, they get to pick whatever their favorite food is, you know, from their country, and so I'm actually heading over there tonight just to wish them well.
I was out at Pad 39A to see the stack yesterday. A couple of things. One, Pad 39A, historic.
Yeah, this is where people went to the moon.
Yeah, Apollo 11.
From that pad.
From that pad, the first space shuttle launch back in '81,
Yeah.
STS-1.
Yep.
And so it's a lot of like karmic responsibility to be operating
Yeah,
from
it's
there.
like Times Square, the Times Square of launch pads.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And the first stage has a beautiful patina on it.
It does. It's it'll be it's a reused stage. So when the stages come back, they kind of get scorched.
Yeah.
So the black thing, some people think is that sort of something? No, it got scorched from re-entry.
Your team said they used to wipe it off to clean it, and then it's just like, why bother?
It's kind of hard to wipe off. It doesn't wipe off easily.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like baked on there.
Yeah. And it's interesting.
You kind of have to repaint it, really.
We were having a discussion about, is it safer to use a stage that's flown already versus a new stage?
Yeah, so I think what we'd say is like flight proven.
Flight proven, yes.
Yeah. So
That's like a Lexus
I mean, if
ad.
this was an airplane, do you want to be on the first flight of that airplane when it comes out of the factory, or do you want to be on a later flight? I'd say let somebody, you know, let the test pilots do their thing before you know, if you fly a plane. So flying a plane, you want to see that plane has flown a few times before you get in it, I think.
Yeah.
So I think it should be on balance better. And then we'll also be start reflying the spacecraft.
The
as well,
Dragon, yeah.
The Dragon spacecraft.
Beautiful.
So we're trying
I'm
to get
so-
reusability is obviously very important. You
It's-
know, in many arenas, reusability is important.
I-
And reusability in rockets is important.
I remember being in Hawthorne, seeing your Falcon 1 there, and it was just amazing. It's come
No, there's
such
some funny pictures of basically the sort of SpaceX as a kind of like a kindergartner, you know, and me being like 20 years younger. We're just in this tiny little warehouse in El Segundo.
Yeah, I remember it well.
Yeah.
Before we go to jump into the guidelines, one last question, update on Starship, because that's what, I mean, Starship's taking us to the moon, taking us to Mars.
That's the
And
goal.
it is audacious. Can you compare it to the
it is
Apollo?
audacious, yes.
Compare it to the Apollo vehicle, the Saturn V, for comparison for a second, for folks to know, get a sense of it.
Sure. Well, I think the thing that's least obvious from when it's on the ground, from the videos and pictures, is the size of it. So it's going to be the largest flying object ever. So it'll be twice the thrust and weight of the Saturn V.
Amazing.
So that's just from a side, and taller. So including the launch escape tower. So it's a very tall rocket. 120 meters tall.
And because it's so wide,
yeah.
the proportions are obscure that fact, how big it is.
Yeah, you can see in some of the pictures that have been released when it's landing on the moon, and the people look like ants. It's a big rocket. This rocket is capable of at least 100 tons and probably closer to 200 tons of useful payload to the surface of the moon. So it's designed it to be far in excess of NASA's requirements.
Yeah.
And so it's really intended to be something that, that can enable a permanently occupied base on the moon. So, we've got obviously permanently occupied base in Antarctica, and it would be great to have one on the moon as well.
Yeah.
And you can do, I think a lot more research if you have the scientists actually there. And we could have some very powerful telescopes.
No, it's the moon. There's some great sayings from Robert Heinlein that said, if God had wanted humanity to have space flight, they would have, she would have given us a moon.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's a great staging place.
Exactly. It's just off the coast. Mars is much further.
Yeah. One last question.
Moon. But I think more important than the size of Starship is the fact that it is intended to be fully and rapidly reusable.
Yeah.
So this is the fundamental holy grail breakthrough needed for access to space. To make humanity a true spacefaring civilization, we must have a fully and rapidly reusable rocket. Now we've made some progress in that direction with Falcon 9, where the booster is reusable, and the Dragon spacecraft upper portion is reusable, but the second stage is not reusable, and I would say right now I would not say the Falcon booster spacecraft and fairing they're not rapidly reusable. Like, it takes a fair bit of effort, much less effort than the space shuttle took.
Yeah.
But
that was a turnaround every year or so.
yeah, exactly. We had 4, and it took about a year to turn them around. We're getting it down to a few months, basically, and soon, I think probably under a month to turn around a booster. But landing out to sea and then having to bring it back, and then sort of taking a month or so to get it ready for launches, still, I wouldn't call it rapid by aircraft standards. Whereas Starship is intended to be both fully and rapidly reusable. So the booster comes right back to the launch pad, literally is caught by the launch tower.
Yep.
So it lands and is actually caught by the launch tower arms. That's aspirationally. I mean, that should be certainly
that looks like science fiction.
Excitement guaranteed. So the booster it comes back about 6 or 7 minutes later, and is caught. So it's right there, and then caught by launch tower arms and placed right back onto the launch stand.
Amazing.
And then the ship is. I actually want the ship also to be caught by the launch tower. Now the ship it takes at least 90 minutes to orbit the Earth.
Yeah.
And we may take more than one. It may take 3 or 4 orbits to get the ground track realigned with the
landing zone. Yeah.
The landing zone, depending on where you are.
Yeah.
But the point is that the ship will come back and land right by the tower, and be placed right back on. And so,
like a 767, just refuel and go.
It's intended to be such that the booster can be used, I don't know, a dozen times a day, and the ship.
Wow.
The ship could be, like basically every couple of hours, and that's mostly about reloading propellant and mounting the ship. And then the ship could probably be used, probably in theory, every 3 hours, if you can make the ground track match. But certainly every, say, 6 to 9 hours, or call it twice a day for the ship. And we'll make more ships than there are boosters. So, and I think once we have the floating space platforms, we can position them such that the ship can come back in a single orbit.
Amazing.
So then it could be like, let's say if we can get 3 ship launches per day, that's 1,000 flights a year. Each with 100 to 150 tons of payload.
Now we're talking a real space program.
Yeah.
Let's go to the questions on the carbon removal prize. We'll be going to your questions in Twitter in about 20 minutes, 15-20 minutes. So Elon, this is the largest prize ever, largest incentive prize ever, and I would argue for one of the most largest civilization scale challenges we have.
Sure.
And we're going to get into the rules in a second so that folks who are looking at creating teams can understand why we created those rules. But why did you fund this? Let's start with the why there.
Yeah, I think I wanted to spur ideas and thinking about the long-term need to capture carbon. You know, I think this is one of those things that's going to take a while to figure out what the right solution is. And especially to figure out what the best economics are for CO2 removal, and all the think through all the consequences. You don't want the cure to be worse than the disease.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes people say, "Well, just plant a bunch of trees." I'm like, that's not so easy. You know, like
A trillion trees.
Sure, exactly. And then you got to like, okay, well, how, you need to get fertilizer. You're going to water them. Where's the water going to come from? What habitat are you potentially destroying where the trees used to be? It's not just it's a no-brainer of just go plant a bunch of trees.
But it's not to say that's not a good viable option.
We should plant some trees.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of planting trees. It's just not a question of like, okay, you know, there are like vast sections of like the Sahara Desert or some large barren areas, very dry areas in the U.S. Where you could in theory plant a lot of trees, but you're going to need a lot of water.
Yeah.
And you're going to need you're going to have to cultivate them. It's not like they don't just throw some seeds on the ground. You know?
We'll drop them from orbit.
Yeah, and I mean, so just I think it'd be good to sort of kind of frame the debate and understand, okay, what things are really going to move the needle? How much are they going to move the needle? You know, if we're talking about getting tens or hundreds of billions of tons of carbon, in what form will that carbon be?
Yeah.
And, will it be stable over time? And like I said, what is it going to cost humanity to do? However it's paid for, what is it going to cost? What's the thing that's going to be most affordable? I think there are a lot of open questions on this.
There are. Let me chunk the rules for those listening, and you and your team, an amazing team, and Marcus Extravor and Xenia Tata and their team work really well together. So the first thing is that for a team to win this, and we'll talk about the prize amounts and so forth, they've got to actually build something that works and demonstrate something that can extract 1,000 tons per year, a kiloton of carbon per year as a demo scale model.
Yeah, I think, by the way, we're very much open to adjusting the rules, to be clear. To be clear to everyone, like meaning if things aren't working or for whatever reason, like we need to adjust rules, we'll adjust rules. The fundamental goal is to have spent 100 million, and actually end up being probably like 120 million or whatever with you know, costs of managing the prize and everything. So there'll be, you know, at the end of the day, probably something like $120 million spent, and hopefully that's spent well and usefully. And that what comes out of it is something that matters to the future. So that's the goal, to be clear. And so if people have, you know, ideas for adjusting the rules.
Yeah, we're going out as guidelines,
Yeah.
and we're going to have, I think, till mid-May for get public feedback, tell us if we missed something.
Right.
We will turn them from guidelines to rules once we get really feedback. And we've gone out to so many of the amazing climate scientists out there.
Yeah.
And it's, unless the rules need to be valid for the 4 years of this prize duration.
Yeah, so we're super open to critical feedback. Don't hesitate to, you know, yell and say, if, hey, this is how it should be different in some way or whatever, you know. The goal is just to, like, let's have it be a useful exercise and have people have a good time trying to figure out this problem. I think it's sort of it's a fun problem to try to work on, yeah, we just want it to be useful at the end of the day, you know, and have it not be sort of just an academic exercise or something that never amounts to anything.
I think one of the things that you've said and I've said is, everything works on PowerPoint.
Everything works in PowerPoint. That's exactly. You could have a PowerPoint presentation for a teleportation system to the Andromeda Galaxy, and even have a simulation of like, look, here we are, boom, you're in the according to the slide, you're now teleported to Andromeda.
So
but it doesn't actually work.
So to win this prize, a team actually during the 4 years has to build something that can at minimum pull out 1,000 tons of carbon per year.
Yeah.
So that they can show us that.
Do they have to? Do they have to pull out 1,000 tons, or just show that the rate it works?
No, they have to pull out
like a literal 1,000 tons. We weigh it.
We're
on a scale.
And we're gonna like maybe we could calculate it to be 1,000 tons.
Okay.
But the rate at which they'll have to run it for a year to get 1,000 tons out. But they have to have
maybe if they run it for a month, that's okay.
Probably it's okay.
Okay.
All right. And
I mean, if in a month. They have like 100 tons, and then it needs to fit on our weighing machine or something. Like I don't know, we're gonna weigh it somehow.
We'll use one of your ships.
Yeah, we'll get it down to the shipyard in a minute.
And part of the actual physically doing it is that they have enough data to calculate costs, which are going to be important. But we're not looking for theory. We're looking for practice. And you know how hard it is to make something real.
It's very hard to make something real. I think, in my view, prototypes are trivial, and production is hard.
Yeah.
And there's the general generally people think it's the prototype that is the hard thing. Prototypes are. Well, I mean, obviously, you're going to have that 1% of inspiration, but as the saying goes, it's 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration.
Yeah.
Ideas are plentiful. Actually getting it done is very hard. You could say, for example, what about the idea of going to the moon? It's easy. Going to the moon is hard. So that's why it's not the idea, man.
Yeah. There's plenty of ideas out there. It's execution.
It's like,
all right, so the second
thing. This was my idea to go to the moon. I patented it. Okay, good.
See you there.
Yeah.
The second thing is, and this is a term that you use first, is that the teams have to be able to calculate the fully considered costs of pulling out the CO2.
Sure.
And what does that mean to you?
Yeah. So I think fully considered cost actually just means that if there are, you want to look at both the benefits and the costs actually. So if in sequestering carbon, removing it from the atmosphere or oceans, has some perhaps some environmental impact, which might be small, but it's not negative.
Mm-hmm.
That certainly needs to be taken into account. And then by the same token, if what's done is in extracting carbon is a useful product from which you can generate revenue, then that should count too.
All right.
So I don't know, I'm just sort of saying for argument's sake, like let's say you could create, construction material, like,
cement.
Cement,
yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Which we
cement,
I'll talk about that later.
Or some kind of useful rocks that are useful, or sand, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Something that's useful for construction. Then you could say, okay, well, this is what we could sell it for, and and then just fully consider pros and cons, and say, okay, this is what, if we need to pay to have it done in the future, which we probably will have to do, then what's the lowest net cost?
Yeah. And to be clear, the working teams, what they do has to be net negative, right? It's not a break even. It's not pull out 1,000 tons and then emit 1,000 tons. And in fact, one of the things we talked about.
Absolutely.
One of the things we
obviously. Yeah.
One of the things we talked about is
it can be worse than a disease.
Yes. How long do you need to sequester the carbon for us? We had a big debate. You want to share what you came up with there? What the team came up with?
The rate of carbon sequestering needs to far exceed the rate at which, say, it is perhaps potentially dissolving back into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Like if
And so one of the rules is that you have to be able to sequester
will
for
it
at least
work,
100
basically?
years, right? So
Yeah.
we set a target, doesn't have to be forever,
Yeah.
you know, a year is not long enough. So we said you have to demonstrate that your methodology is going to contain the CO2 in some fashion for 100 years at least.
Yeah, maybe there's a small amount that is lost. Maybe it's not perfect. You
Yeah.
know, I think probably don't want to set it to, you know, 100% for 100 years. But if it's like, I don't know, 90% for 100 years, that's probably okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it just needs to be something that if we scaled it up, would it work?
Yeah, and that's the third part.
Obviously.
That's the third
Just
part,
pass
which
common
is
sense test, really.
yes, and the hardest thing is that the winning team has to prove to our judges that their approach can actually scale to a gigaton level. Otherwise, it's not going to be useful.
Right.
Test. Yeah, I don't know what's wrong. Okay, my audio's back. But I need to check. What is the feedback we received? What is the feedback we received? Hmm. Reviewer one. Hmm. This proposal is a good idea, but not feasible. There is no robustness of analysis to convince anyone that the team will be able to remove any carbon, and the demonstrations are weak. They need to go back and rethink and strengthen the narrative. One judge said we need to strengthen the narrative. Reviewer two said nothing. Oh, so we had two of the four judges provided no feedback. One judge said we need to strengthen the narrative. And another, and well, I call them judges. Two of four reviewers provided no feedback. One reviewer needs to strengthen the narrative, and another reviewer doesn't understand that water can, transforming deserts into forests, uh, is a valid carbon sequestration strategy. I'm just going to say are not continent and okay, say
Exactly. It can't be niche.
Yeah.
It can't be inherently niche.
And if anybody knows about scaling up, I think
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah. Scaling is hard.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know what the answer is here, really. But I think if a lot of smart people work on this, there could be some really creative solutions.
Something generally useful for the world in that regard.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think just to be clear, like we're looking for pragmatic solutions. It doesn't need to be perfect, you know. But it's got to be something that just fundamentally, if we scaled it up, would it work? And that's it.
So let's talk about the prizes that are up for grabs. First place is going to be 50 million,
Yeah.
which is significant. Our hope is that it's going to attract enough cognitive surplus out there to focus in on this.
Yeah.
30 million split between sort of a second, third, and fourth place prize. And one of the things that you and your team put forward is maybe it might be split into different categories,
Sure.
right? Different approaches.
Yeah. I mean, we want to reward people who have done great work.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, I'm open to increasing the prize size too over time. So, if it turns out like, hey, somebody really kicked ass, and somehow there's not a prize for them, I'll add some more to the prize.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want somebody to have like spent like, you know, massive blood, sweat, and tears, have done something useful, and then get nothing for it. That would be pretty bad.
Yeah.
So, but I think also, you know, somebody's going to probably get a company out of this, you know, because I think this will be a need long term, and you know, so, so this is kind of like, you can also think of it as like, you know, free venture money.
Yeah.
You know.
Non-dilutive venture capital.
Yeah,
and
free money for a company.
And hopefully we're also creating a massive marketplace and proving to people that there's a there here.
Yeah.
So 50 million for the first, 30 million split among second, third, and fourth. In the next year, we're taking $15 million and distributing $1 million to the top 15 teams that appear to be making the most progress and the most real.
Just giving some people some seed money, basically. Yeah.
And then you've set aside $5 million for student teams.
Yeah,
which is real important. You want to talk about student teams? I know you're passionate about that.
Yeah. We've done a lot of student competitions, for example, Hyperloop. Just trying to you know, spur ideas in advanced transportation. And it's really just basically an electric car and a vacuum tube, to be precise. I mean, and we've had several of them, and you know, the last Hyperloop competition, they actually got like, I think, halfway to the speed of sound. So yeah, it's pretty impressive. And the thing was, you had to get to the fastest speed and then stop without crashing.
Yeah.
That's it's kind of exciting. It's like, is this thing gonna, you know, what speed is it gonna get up to? Are they gonna slam the brakes on in time, or is it gonna hit the crash barrier at the end? So it's pretty fun. And then we kind of got to, we put that on pause, and now we're doing tunneling competitions.
Nice. Change that. Yeah, that technology has not changed that much in a century.
No, honestly, I think we're gonna, you know, I mean, for, I don't know, 5 or 7 years, for a long time, I was like, people asked me, what opportunities do you see? I said tunneling, and they would think I was joking, but I think this is the way to solve traffic in congested cities. And almost every major city is congested. So, and with, as autonomy gets better and better, and you have robo-taxis and everything, the robo-taxis will be cheaper than a bus or subway, and people will want it, and it'll take you point to point, you know, even when it's like raining and snow, and it's, you know, so it's going to be better also, I think, for, you know, from a public health standpoint, like if there's another pandemic, and, you know, how do you get around, you know? It's like you know, it's just difficult to go in crowded spaces. So anyway, so I think tunnels are going to be really important in the future for relieving congestion in cities. So you know, I hope others start tunneling companies, and just improve tunneling technology. That you can have like these warp tunnels just going all the way through this, 3D, like multiple levels, and we're the first operational one in Vegas. That's it's going to go into operation, I think, in a few months.
We could sit here and talk about macaque monkeys playing Pong as
Oh,
well
yeah,
on
mind Pong.
Neuralink. That was amazing.
Yeah,
That
pretty
was
wild.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to go there. I'm going to focus still on our.
I played mind Pong against the monkey.
You did? Did it win?
Yeah, no, but but it hadn't practiced as much yet, so now it might be able to beat me. Monkeys have very good agility.
Yeah.
Like,
They've got to catch the branch.
Like they can swing through the trees, and we cannot. Not very well, yeah. So I think a monkey actually could play like a fast twitch video game really well.
That's great.
Maybe better than a human.
You can sponsor a team.
Yeah, exactly. Esports, it's just monkeys.
Macaques
Yeah.
against the best teams.
Yeah, it turns out the monkeys actually love playing video games and
So do my 9-year-olds.
and drinking smoothies. No, it's just like humans. I mean, basically humans love snacks and video games, and so do monkeys.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We're about to go to questions in 2 minutes. I know we got a stack of them. I just want to hit on, there are 4 categories that teams can put their approaches forward. First is direct air capture. Pull it out of the air. Any comment on that?
Sure. Well, I mean, you can certainly pull it out. There's lots of ways to get carbon out of the air.
Yeah.
You could adsorb it many different ways.
Yeah. Category 2 is oceans, sort of algae, kelp, plankton. A lot of CO2 in the oceans. People don't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
Category 3, land. Trees. I mean, Mark Benioff has been backing a trillion trees project. I mean, that
where are
is.
they going to be planted?
We'll find out.
Okay.
By the way, when people say that Earth is being overpopulated,
this is not true.
It's like, look out the window, and I know you and I have had this conversation that you're more worried about underpopulation of planet.
Oh yeah. Earth is going to face a massive population collapse over the next 20, 30 years. Massive.
Yeah.
And this is definitely more civilization. The question of like, is civilization going to die with a bang or a whimper? This would definitely be dying with a whimper.
Yeah, we need.
The birth rate is very low.
Yeah, it's been dropping, right? It used to be 5, 6 children per family. Globally, it's like 2.4. Below, in the U.S., it's below replacement levels.
I mean, in most of Europe, Russia, Japan, Korea, Singapore, it's well below replacement.
But I would still say, when we spoke last about this, you're still a sort of abundance optimist that the world is getting better on many levels.
Yeah, I think the world is generally getting better. I have some concerns about advanced AI, like that's a risk. If I say like existential risks, I'd say super advanced AI is one.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the second biggest risk after that is population collapse.
Not asteroid impact.
No. The population collapse. The thing about demographics is both.
Hello. I took it as a sign. I don't know. Publish. What does that do? So, Monday morning. So I identified some timestamps. I kind of want to, I thought there would be um, more mentioning of, planting trees. I think there is, which I want to play this some more and add more. What's going on over here is I identified like our biggest threat, and I communicated the threat, and I am investigating what maybe is causing risk. Yeah, what is the root cause for the biggest risk that we're facing right now? So I've got that going on. I'm coordinating, and I'm learning how to coordinate with multiple people and teams. So you know, I'm pretty good at managing um, multiple um, problems, multiple simultaneous problems, and it has to do with systematizing, developing systems. So, I have Trello where I keep track of my to-dos and my dones. I keep track of my Slack, my unread messages, um, my emails, my unread messages. I create reminders. So in about 50 minutes, I should get about 3 or 4 reminders about things that happened over the weekend or once I was done on Friday. So I systematize, which allows me to avoid forgetting um, and avoid uh, going down a rabbit hole, as they say, and focusing on the wrong thing. It's not the most important thing. So I try to balance that with life as well. Like, where's my family? Um, I can find out. I think they went to the library. Let's see. No. Um, according to this, they're maybe going for a walk. Let's check out my camera. Yeah, they're gone. They are not here. Let's, they may be leaving. I thought I heard something, so I think they're leaving. Yeah, they just left. So I missed that opportunity. I like to go out and say bye. Yeah. Anyways, so uh, I've been busy. I thought maybe they would come and say bye to me. All right. But yeah, uh, so yeah, that's what I'm doing over here is trying to identify the root cause for the biggest risk. I'm being responsive, trying to be helpful, uh, coordinating, having multiple conversations. All right, so let's continue to edit this video. See if I can pick back up.
On Neuralink, that was amazing.
Yeah,
That
pretty
was
wild.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to go there. I'm going to focus still on our
Okay.
I played Mind Pong against the monkey.
You did? Did it win?
Yeah, no, but but it hadn't practiced as much yet, so now it might be able to beat me. Monkeys have very good agility. Yeah,
No, they've got to catch the branch.
Like they can swing through the trees, and we cannot. Not very well, you know. Yeah. So I think a monkey actually could play like a fast twitch video game really well.
That's
Probably
great.
maybe better than a human.
You can sponsor a team.
Yeah, exactly. Esports, it's just monkeys.
Macaques
Yeah.
against the best teams.
Yeah, it turns out monkeys actually love playing video games and
So do my 9-year-olds.
and drinking smoothies. No, it's just like humans. I mean, basically humans love snacks and video games, and so do monkeys. You know.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We're about to go to questions in 2 minutes. I know we got a stack of them. I just want to hit on there are 4 categories that teams can put their approaches forward. First is direct air capture. Pull it out of the air. Any comment on that?
Sure. Well, I mean, you can certainly pull out. There's lots of ways to get carbon out of the air.
Yeah.
You could adsorb it many different ways.
Yeah. Category 2 is oceans, sort of algae, kelp, plankton. A lot of CO2 in the oceans, people don't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
Category 3 land, trees. I mean, Mark Benioff has been backing a trillion trees project. I mean, that
Where
is.
are they going to be planted?
We'll find out.
Okay.
There's, by the way, when people say that Earth is being overpopulated,
This is not true.
It's like, look out the window, and I know you and I have had this conversation that you're more worried about a lot of CO2 in the oceans. People don't realize that.
Mm-hmm.
Category 3 land, trees. I mean, Mark Benioff has been backing a trillion trees project. I mean, that
Where
is.
are they going to be planted?
We'll find out.
Notice that I use a Koja, and there's 1,500 trees I've helped to plant. Mark Benioff. Man, I can't believe I spelled that right. Help plant 1 trillion trees. Salesforce billionaire Mark Benioff pledges. Yeah, I don't know how you get in touch with Mark Benioff. Mark Benioff wants to plant 1 trillion trees.
We'll find out.
Okay.
There's, by the way, when people say that Earth is being overpopulated,
This is not true.
It's like, look out the window, and I know you and I have had this conversation that you're more worried about underpopulation of planet.
Oh yeah, yeah. Earth is going to face a massive population collapse
Yeah.
over the next 20, 30 years. Massive.
Yeah.
And this is definitely, will civilization, the question of like, is civilization going to die with a bang or a whimper? This would definitely be dying with a whimper.
Yeah, we
But
need.
the birth rate is very low.
Yeah, it's been dropping, right? It used to be 5, 6 children per family. Globally, it's like 2.4. Below, in the U.S., it's below replacement levels.
I mean, in most of Europe, Russia, Japan, Korea, Singapore, it's well below replacement.
But I would still say,
so.
are you? I mean, when we spoke last about this area, you're still a sort of abundance optimist that the world is getting better on many levels.
Yeah, I think the world is generally getting better. I have some concerns about advanced AI, like that's a risk. If I say like existential risks, I'd say super advanced AI is one, and probably the second biggest risk after that is population collapse.
Not asteroid impact.
No, the population collapse. The thing about demographics and birth rates, you know what's going to happen in 20 years because you know the birth rate last year.
Yeah.
It takes like 20 years for a person to grow up.
Yeah.
So we know what the adult population is going to be 20 years from now because we know what kids were born last year. I think we have a serious issue with population collapse. That's far bigger than people realize. And this the social networks and everything. The social support networks were not really set up for a high ratio of retirees to workers. So then.
Well, thank God we got robots coming in.
Yeah, the robots, exactly. We'll need those robots, but you don't want to have the youth effectively enslaved to take care of the elderly. Which is what would kind of happen if you have an upside down demographic pyramid.
Let's get to the questions. First of all, if you're interested in the guidelines or to register a team, go to xprize.org. You can download the guidelines. Again, up until I think May 13th, we're looking for public comment. Please tell us what we could do to improve it. And then please register as a team so we can communicate with you if you're interested. Before we go to the questions, and you go to XPrize's Twitter account @XPrize to ask questions, Let's go to a short video from Dr. Marcus Extravor. We call him Dr. X. He is the lead for us, an amazing, brilliant individual who leads our carbon and climate work. All right, let's see what Dr. Extravor has to say.
I'm looking for $100 million answers that can help change the course of human history and help heal our planet. But what's the question? In the next 100 seconds, I'm going to explain. I'm Marcus Extravor, Vice President of Energy.
That's a commercial for 90 seconds. So I'm trying to send an email to Mark Benioff. And that's, hello, Mark. I want to point you towards a new technology which can provide a reliable supply of water in deserts. I could beef that up to can reliably provide over 400 megaliters of water, reliably provide over 400 megaliters of water per day in arid regions. I want to point you towards a new technology which can reliably provide over 400 megaliters of water per day in arid regions. And then I share a link to, actually I'm sharing a link to like my website because I've kind of went ahead and rebranded there, and it links to convective heat engine. And I rebranded it as a core infrastructure for sustainable cities. So that's my attempt, and I will allow these two to continue speaking.
Lucky to have amazing people, which is what SpaceX and Tesla, I mean, people who care about changing the world. All right, we're going to go to
And this is my shtick here at Looking for Group is, how do you know they are amazing people? How do you know you have hired and promoted the best? So this is the biggest problem in the world. So if you solve this problem, you solve all other problems. So they ignored the solution that I've been trying to help with, and maybe they rightfully ignored it, but based on the feedback, it does not appear that the X Prize has solved the human resource problem. They don't, and I don't think they know how to use technology very well. So that's my
some
personal
questions.
opinion.
We have some over here. The first one is from Chuck Brady in Austin. Chuck is one of our innovation board members, one of the earliest funders that did the background work in the climate for here. And so I found this question super fascinating. So he says, if the bogey is 10 gigatons per year, and the global economic output is $87 trillion, at least it has been the last year, then at $200 per ton, to sequester, cost sequestration is $2 trillion, or about 2% of the global GDP. So it seems like a reasonable drag on overall economy if we could stop or reverse climate change. The shortcoming right now is we don't have a scalable way yet to capture and sequester CO2. So that's the background. That seems like a reasonable estimate. So here's his first question. Should competing teams prioritize scalability over cost? And what lessons from Tesla and SpaceX have you learned to help teams thinking about the design of their solutions?
Well, I think it's not, unless the cost is affordable, it's not scalable. I mean, I thought the prior math was pretty sensible there. You know, we could afford something perhaps which is 1 or 2% of GDP, but it would be extremely painful if it was 20% of GDP.
Yeah.
We'd start having to cut into healthcare and all sorts of, you know, social care programs. And if it's 200% of GDP, it's not happening at all.
Yep.
So we want to just let them know that the audio feed's coming through.
Yeah, Chuck has a second question I also thought was really important. It says, while we want the lowest cost that will do a gigaton per year or more, inevitably there are going to be trade-offs between cost and scalability.
No, actually, I think something's not scalable unless the cost is low.
Yeah.
So, or at least if the cost at scale is low.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess cost and scalable. You could say like I could plant a tree. Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, but we just need to solve the problem, and so both cost and scalability need to be addressed. It's like, is it going to remove enough carbon to matter,
Mm-hmm.
and can we afford it as a civilization?
Yeah.
Those are the two things that matter.
Yeah.
And then just obviously making sure that in sequestering the carbon, we're not at the same time creating some new environmental issue. So
I mean, that's an important point, right? That we're not creating a new environmental issue at the same time that we are.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is, but it can only be, basically the cure has got to be much better than the disease.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So just like, you know, you take some medication, maybe there's like slight side effects, but you generally want the medication to be much better than the disease. So it just got to make sense. Like, we can see a path to this, to working at scale and solving the problem.
Yeah.
It has to have some chance of that.
Paresh Galani from Los Angeles, one of our Vision Circle members, says, who do you think should be paying for the cost of carbon capture? Is it government, oil industry, a tax across everyone? Do you have a sense about that?
Well, generally the market systems work very well when prices are accurate. And the problem we have right now is that we're not correctly pricing the cost per ton of CO2 in the atmosphere and oceans. So, and there are various attempts to try to get at this with subsidies and whatnot, but really the market system will work well if the market systems work well if there is not a pricing error.
Yeah.
And we have a pricing error in that we are not paying for this externality. In classic economics, it's just an unpriced externality in the, we're not paying for our garbage removal. So then garbage piles up, you know, so, and so the logical thing to do, and I think the, you know, vast majority of economists would agree, is to put a tax on carbon, and then you can find ways with tax rebates and whatnot to make sure it's not a regressive tax, that it does not unfairly, you know, disproportionately negatively affect people on low incomes with tax rebates and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's the way to, that's the thing that systemically I think is important to address it. If you correctly price something, the market system works.
Yeah.
Prices are just information. We have the wrong information, so.
Julio from Dublin says, do you expect the technologies coming out of this competition to have any use on Mars, for example? And P.S., thank you for what you're doing for humanity.
Yeah, I think so. Interesting thing on Mars is that Mars is a primarily CO2 atmosphere, though it also has some nitrogen and carbon and other trace elements. Nitrogen and argon, I should say, in addition to primarily CO2. So in order to produce propellant on Mars, we would take the CO2 from the atmosphere, combine that with water ice. Mars has a lot of ice under the dust.
It's amazing that that 20 years ago that wasn't known. I mean, we're discovering it every place now.
Yeah. Mars is basically covered in ice.
Yeah.
It's just got dust too, so it's hard to see the ice under the dust. But I believe. If you warmed Mars up, you'd have an ocean with an average depth, I think, of almost a mile or something like that. Wow. On the northern part of the planet. It's like something like 40% of the planet would have an ocean potentially up to a mile mile deep or something like that.
Extraordinary.
A big. It wouldn't be like just a little lake or something like that. So, so you take the water ice, H2O, and you combine that with the CO2 in the atmosphere. Use something like the Sabatier process where you run it over a ruthenium catalyst, and you get basically
Methane.
Yeah, you get methane. You get CH4 and O2 oxygen, and that's actually why we designed the Starship to use methane oxygen, is because we can actually create that
and refuel on Mars.
sustainably. Yeah, in fact, literally by pulling the CO2 out of the atmosphere, combining it with water,
yeah.
and then using that as propellant. And so, actually, by its very nature, Mars has to have a sustainable energy, sustainable rocket propellant.
Yeah.
So.
Let's go to India. Rohan Kumar from Mumbai says, why don't you simply implement the available technologies on a larger scale?
Like which technologies?
Yeah. Tree planting.
I think there should be more trees. Let's do it.
I think I would say that there currently does not exist technologies that can scale to the gigaton level at a reasonable cost, and that's the underlying purpose of this competition, is to either demonstrate existing technologies can, and teams can use whatever technologies they want, or to really innovate and come up with new approaches. It's like,
yeah.
Well,
the thing is that generally, if trees can grow somewhere, they usually do grow. Like unless some of they generally.
Yeah, there's no one there pulling them out other than humans in the Amazon.
Yeah, I mean the Amazon is quite a big thick jungle. I've flown over the Amazon many times, and that is one hell of a jungle. In fact, like you would fly for long periods of time and see nothing, no lights, no fires, no nothing, just darkness. And then eventually, like, fly over Brasilia, the capital, and like out of nowhere, there's a bunch of lights. But there's in order to have a big increase in tree biomass, we would have to irrigate and provide manure, like basically fertilizer, and we'd have to cultivate.
Make it hospitable for the trees to grow.
Yes, and then you say, okay, well, what's the energy cost of the fertilizer and getting the fresh water there, and just making it habitable for trees. It's you got to factor in the energy cost of the fertilizer and the energy cost of the water, and all that. So it's like, okay, what's the actual net carbon result? It's not as good as people might think. Again, I'm not saying I'm anti-tree, I'm pro-tree, but it would just be very difficult to blanket the Sahara with trees.
Yeah. So this is an important one here. As teams are coming together, so Grant in Washington, D.C. says, what is Elon's and Peter's process of building a strong team? And ultimately, I think the quality of your team is everything.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So
that's how you get things done.
How do you, when you start a new company like Neuralink or Boring, how do you recruit that first core team?
Well, Neuralink and Boring are very small companies, I should be emphasized. Like, these are tiny compared to SpaceX and Tesla, which is
sure.
Well over 90% of what I do is just SpaceX and Tesla.
Yeah.
Neuralink and Boring Company are each just a few hundred people.
But how do you? But these teams
Tesla's
are going to be
80,000 people.
That's incredible, dude.
Yeah, so Tesla's big. SpaceX is like over 8,000 people. So.
But how do you recruit your initial team to work on something? Do you put out word? Do you know somebody typically? Do you build around somebody else? Do you pull from your existing companies?
Well, it varies. I mean, the first company way back in the day, Zip2, what I did was I just wrote software, so I didn't have any money. So with Zip2, I came out to go do grad studies at Stanford. I had $100,000 in like student debt and one computer. and I was going to actually work on advanced capacitors for use in electric vehicles.
I remember that, you saying that.
Way back in the day.
Yeah.
So, and I'd spent a couple summers working on that before in Silicon Valley before going to Stanford. And then that summer I was like, well, you know, the internet's going to be something that really changes it's going to be one of the biggest impacts on humanity. You know, it's like humanity, communication will go from being like osmosis to humanity having a nervous system where you could access any part of humanity's knowledge from anywhere, from any connection anywhere. You could be in the middle of the Amazon jungle and have access to all of humanity's information, more than if somebody was living in the Library of Congress. So it's like, well, I want to be part of creating that. And so I just started writing software. I've been writing software for a long time, but I actually wrote the first maps and directions on the internet, the first white pages, first yellow pages, by myself. And then, you know, we've hired a few interns, and then my brother joined, another friend of mine, Greg Curry, who's passed away. And then we got some venture funding. I thought it was crazy that these guys were going to give us like, they gave us like $3 million. And I was like, this is insane. Like it's just us and some interns. And they're giving us $3 million. This is crazy. They must be mad.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is, if you know, the first most critical part of the team is you, as the founder and the passionate individuals.
Try to do useful things.
Let's try and squeeze in a few more.
Well, I mean, I think like
yeah.
the things you have to remember, like for SpaceX, it was just literally like, okay, we should become multi-planet species, and these are like long answers. So, but I think in general, if you want to recruit people that are, you know, really talented and driven, you have to state what's the mission, what's the problem we're trying to solve,
yep.
and just be clearly willing to, you know, pour a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it, and have a convincing argument for why it matters.
Yep.
You know, there's, you know, say like there's three major things for, you know, in terms of motivation. It's like, first of all, somebody's got to look forward to coming to work in the morning. Like, if they're, like, are they enjoying the work itself intrinsically? That's very important. And the right work environment can really make a big difference there. I think ideally is that they also feel like that their rewards will receive fair financial compensation, like that you know, that the financial rewards are good and fair. And then third, for the best people in the world, they'll want to know, is what they're doing going to matter?
Yep.
Like, so if they spend 10 years doing this, will it make a difference to the world, or, you know, will people notice? Will it matter? You know.
Can I get the next question, please? Lee from San Diego says, the X Prize just awarded $20 million in prize money related to carbon removal. Can you explain what the difference is between that and the Musk Foundation's X Prize? We had a $20 million Energy COSIA prize for pulling CO2 out of the smokestack of a natural gas and coal plant and turning it into a product more profitable in the cost of extraction. And we just, the two teams that won that were creating concrete, and they're up and scaling. So that's you know, now it's, instead of just out of the plants right now, and thank you to Wyoming for their support there, it's now, can we pull it out on a global level? Okay.
But what sort of tonnage are they able to do?
I actually don't know the answer. But Nandan from India says, can a 17-year-old register, given that I have the resources and ideas? Yeah. I
think so, sure.
I think
there's no age limit or anything.
There's no age limit, where in fact student teams are going to be important. Oli from London says, technology is a piece of the climate change solution, but how do you change behavior and habits? What do you think about that?
I think changing people's behavior and habits is tough.
Yeah.
Or basically, if you're trying to convince people to make life more miserable for themselves, this is a hard argument to win. Yeah. So with Tesla, when we created Tesla, we're like, okay, look, we got to make a car that's exciting and fun and looks good, and then people don't have to. If you're trying to convince people that in order to save the environment, you have to wear a hair shirt and make life miserable, and your food's going to be terrible. This is an uphill battle. Okay, so at Tesla, we're like, we're just going to make electric cars that are better than gasoline cars.
Yeah. Faster. Yeah. Lower cost for maintenance.
Yeah. They look beautiful. They're faster. and they have also, cool advanced technology. They're more fun, and you don't have to go to gas stations, which are nasty, and so, but you got to solve long distance problem with superchargers. So I think it is actually, going to be way more palatable to people if it's if whatever solution is removing carbon does not make their quality of life worse.
Yeah. One last question here from Godfrey in New York. I know Godfrey. He has got ALS, and he is loving his fully self-driving Model S.
Okay, well, it's not fully self-driving.
Yeah,
yet.
I know, but
But it's getting there.
It's getting there. It's getting there. And so he's. I mean, for people who are disabled, it's extraordinary technology. It's coming, and he's a brilliant, brilliant human being. He says, "Hi, Elon. Big fan of your work. Massively and eternally grateful to you for being a powerful source of inspiration to me. Can you please share who and what inspires you and drives you to be so insanely productive at a superhuman level?" So who and what?
Well, I don't know. I think I was always kind of like a crazy kid, I suppose. I was just very curious about the world and how do we come to be here? What's the meaning of life and all that? And I always had a really intense desire to understand things and learn. Yeah, I mean, I had sort of an existential crisis, I guess, when I was 11 or 12 or something, just trying to figure out what it's all about, and ultimately came to the conclusion that we don't really know the answer, but if we increase the scope and scale of civilization, then we have a much better chance of understanding the meaning of life and why we're here, or even what are the right questions to ask. So, therefore, we should strive to expand the scope and scale of consciousness.
I had a similar realization, but not at 12 years old. But mine's more focused on um, group consciousness. So instead of thinking, oh, we need to expand our consciousness, like Elon Musk is talking about, I'm thinking we need to learn how to use the consciousness we already have. And so, for example, Elon Musk, he gave you an answer about um, motivating people, and that's a leadership skill. Um, but he didn't give you an answer on how do you decide who should be promoted, who should be hired and fired and demoted. He just gave you an answer on, well, how can you attract the right people, which is like maybe the first step. Um, but maybe he's not so good at the other things, and maybe he outsources to some people in HR who do this for him. Like he hasn't maybe paid attention to, for example, like the tech support problems and the HR problems inside of his companies. And maybe he has a good contact who does this for him and does it well. And then, Peter similarly has focused on tech support and human resources. And like this is like the janitorial work of the business world that your CEO maybe has not uh, given a lot of attention to. Um, and it's a shame. It is a shame because, yeah, there's plenty of ideas and people out there that can really solve these problems, but we haven't mastered our ability to facilitate the emergence of the right ideas and the right organization of people. We haven't figured that out. I mean, an X prize is a good idea, but how do you go through and analyze all the people who put forth that effort and entered into the prize? That's the hard part. Throwing money at it and providing a prize, that's not as hard. So there's some details that these guys they either don't know or they aren't communicating. So Just wanted to chime in.
To better understand the questions to ask about the answer that is the universe.
Yeah. Well, on behalf of the human race, on behalf of everybody watching, Elon, thank you for all that you do. I know you work 24/7 and driven by passion. So
Thanks.
yeah, I'm just grateful for what you've done, and thank you for supporting and launching this this X Prize. It's meaningful beyond belief, and hopefully now it's everybody else's turn to try and dig in and form teams.
Yeah, I hope you all have a good time and you know, some productive stuff comes out of it. That'd be great.
Yeah.
So notice these two people, they knew each other and they had a connection. And so there's maybe even a loyalty. And this is where I feel like loyalty can get in the way of identifying the best ideas and the right people. Like loyalty is what you fall back on um, because you haven't figured out how to like systematize uh, the uh, receiving or the identification of the best ideas, and you haven't systematized the identification of the right people for the right job. You just fall back on loyalty. So it's just the way it is. Things will never be the same. It's just the way it is. Do 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 do.
That would be awesome. For everybody tuning in, I know we have literally thousands of questions. We're going to be going to Twitter Spaces Live, which is Twitter's new audio chat feature. Dr. Marcus Extravor and Xenia Tata and I will be there to engage and answer as many questions as we can about the rules.
Is this like Twitter's Clubhouse thing?
This is Twitter's Clubhouse, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Awesome. So, pal, again, I'm going to be there tomorrow morning.
Okay,
Good luck
cool.
with the launch.
Yeah, it's going to be a late night. I'll be up all night because launch is pretty early in the morning. So
Yeah, I'm gonna tap on you for my invitation to the to Boca Chica for
sure.
a Starship flight.
It's pretty wild seeing that.
It is.
It's that feels like the future.
It's
It's pretty insane.
yeah, yeah. Buck Rogers, here we come.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, see you guys on Twitter Spaces. Elon,
All right.
thanks,
Thanks
bud.
Peter. All right.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, so the struggle is like I have a difficult time attempting to get Peter's attention or Elon's attention, right? And you know, rightfully so. Um, but what if this idea is something that if there was a meeting um, and we discussed the idea that it would actually uh, that Peter and Elon would be very grateful to have been introduced to the idea, and so that's the question. And then you can ask other questions like, well, why did the X Prize fail to identify this idea? One answer is, oh, well, the team did not do a very good job of presenting the idea. That's one answer, but we should share blame. Um, the reviewers weren't qualified to review the ideas that were presented, and there was no process in place for them to raise their hand and say, um, we don't know what to do with this idea. Needs to go into a separate stack for some specialists. So, oh well, oh well. But I did identify a few more comments about trees. So. Copy. I wonder if I can hide my screen. The display capture can be hidden. Boom. No, you can't see. what I'm looking at. Let's see if I can. So I'll pull up, like I could pull up my secret stuff while you're not looking. I'm pulling up Discord. I'm going to share this link with Jason. He's got some timestamps. That's what he asked for. Do, 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 do. Sure did take a while for Discord to start. All right. Hey, this is where my attention can be grabbed from other people. Here we go. My attention was grabbed. Technical question. Yesterday, 9:38 p.m. Technical question from Mr. Griswold. I wonder if I can like copy his question. And then the question will be, should I be giving my attention? Oh, I've got notifications over here. This is the thing, like I can drive a car while reading a book because I try to keep my priorities straight. So I have to check this out. Yeah, this is my boss. Hello, boss. Let's do. This is going to be boring for many people who are watching. Let's see. I'm going to take this question from my Discord server, and then I'm going to put up a different tool. And here's the question. The question. Now I can share the question with others. And if there was a hive mind, then I could get answers. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. There's the question. Maybe it got a little too big there. There we go. That's it. So I'll allow you to ponder the question. question. Come on. My tools. I don't know how to use my tools. Hmm. All right. Yeah, gotta give attention to the boss. Like, I think responsiveness is important. Like, I want to be responsive to this person on the Discord server, um, but you know, there's priorities. It's like, in my world, the ideal, which I practice living up to, would be God at the top. What does that even mean? Um, and I think that means something like caring for all people across all space and time, um, which is impossible to do, but I think it helps orient everything else. So below that would be kind of like, you know, uh, the relationship between uh, my wife and I. So husband. And so as a husband, I need to be healthy. Like, so in order to serve God, I need to be healthy. And in order to be a good husband, I need to be healthy. And there's a bunch of things I need to do. I need to be learning and growing, transforming. Uh, I need to be responsive. Um, and that and being responsive uh, to your significant other, your spouse, your whomever. That's your family, your friends. Um, that's important, and developing your ability to do that is important. So being able to listen is important. And then I also have I'm a I'm a servant of God. I'm a husband, um, and I'm a father to three children. And then after that, I'm an employee with a company that I enjoy working with. And part of that is because they've helped me learn these things that make me better at doing these other things, like serving God, being a better husband, being a better father. It's been good. So, and then after that will come, basically everyone else. Uh, there's a chance that I would like, start my own business or become employed with someone else, but I'm not looking to do that. I think about it, like, what could I do different or better? But as long as I am like growing and learning with this company, it's a good fit. So yeah, my reminders just came in. Which one of them is actually needs my attention? Um, coordination. Coordination. It doesn't actually feel like work when you're like when Elon Musk talked about that, the leadership and trying to attract the right people is I'm trying to learn how to do this is how do you motivate people to do the right thing. I'm not great at it, but learning, which is it's like why I like my job. It's like something I'm not weak at, but like I know that there are answers to these problems, like the human resource problem. And I know that we need leaders. And I don't see people like being the leader that we need. And so it's like, well, maybe I can learn how to be a better leader. And even if I'm not that leader, I at least will get better at recognizing the people who are good at it. Like, it's like they know, I can say, I can identify them. I can say, they know the thing that I have learned. And maybe even these are the indicators that they know, measurable indicators, perhaps. And then I can um, learn more from them. So I'm trying to get better at becoming a better leader and being able to identify the people who are leaders. And that has to do with being able to identify, the right ideas, the right people, and also being able to motivate and encourage and coordinate people toward the right ideas and the right organization structure. And heck, if I can get good at it in my company, this company will do well. So like business dizziness is the place where you can contribute in order to help grow something, like produce good fruit. Um, yeah, like that could be very meaningful. At least I think it is, and it feels meaningful to me. Communication skills. Oh, also even note-taking skills. Oh, so this might get boring. Let's see. I've been live streaming for 2 hours. What's the first thing I should do if I want to make a bot that sums up, saving throw bonus emoji clicks? That kind of gives you a tell for who this is. Saving throw bonus emoji clicks with the username that received them since last live stream date to now. It's a good question. I like the question because it shows. I don't know if it's sincere, but it definitely shows an interest in learning how to do this yourself, which is that skills building, that stack building thing. So the first step, like I've already done this, but I think the first step would be that he needs to learn to create a bot. So let's just let him know. So the answer to this, I'll say, is step one, create test Discord server. Step two, create bot connected to test Discord server, which is the hard part. The challenging part. And then step three, verify everything works as intended using your workflow and then for deploy bot to production Discord server, something like that. Step 2.a, something like that. And then learning to build. I can help you get your first hello world bot. Start with a basic hello world bot in your test Discord server. I also have, let's not offer too much up just because I think it's valuable for people to go through and challenge themselves and try to learn how to do it on their own. If they struggle too much, I want to be there to help. So if you struggle for at any step for more than 2 hours, feel free to reach out for help. So I think that's the answer. And I'll just leave it at that. Oh, my boss might be responding, so I'm going to go ahead and stop this. And hey, Mondays, still have to do my weekly analysis of people expectations for the future and analysis of the past and see how those things might be able to try to predict how they might result in issues, problems. attempt to predict the future and communicate and encourage people to behave in ways such that the future is good. That's what I do. So, all right.